2. And here we go again. The next ride. It's myself, BushWhisperer, and Jeremy, Tall Tree. And we are going to be just having a informal conversation. I'm not quite sure what we're going to be talking about today. If you guys have been following the show, you know who we both are. Jeremy, welcome to our brother. It's an honor to be here with you. Do you know what we're talking about today, by the way?
Yes, absolutely. So, um, great to be here again. Uh, these shows are a highlight of my week. um, so last time we spoke, uh, we ended our conversation um, where you were talking about uh, the discovery of your friend in his apartment, and
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, kind of a
Hmm.
heavy topic here, but important, I think, in your story because it you decided to pick up the work that your friend um, unfortunately had to leave behind. And so, what was that work, and how did you get started?
Well, arranging the funeral was a nightmare because there were thousands of people that wanted to come, and it was a very small affair. So we had to sort of try and keep everybody in the networks happy because Alex was really well known and loved by a lot of people because he was an activist in all different spheres. And he used to always bring me in to different projects that he was working on. Like I was a performer. I'd just be the local shaman presence that would be part of whatever was going on. And the main thing that first came up was the Festival of Life. He had been a founder of this festival, which is a raw food, whole food lifestyle festival, ethical festival, praised as at the time one of the most ethical festival in the UK, probably in one of them in Europe, or one of the better ones in Europe, you know, for reputation. And a lot of people used to come from, you know, even Europe to come to this festival. It was small, it was in Holborn. And Chris and Mary, who were the other two coordinators, main coordinators, had come to me and said, like, we're thinking about cancelling. I was like, what do you mean you think about cancelling? Well, Alex was basically doing half of the festival. The two of us are like really busy. We only do. I said, well, screw that for a bad idea. I'll pick up that lead because they said to me, well, if you can help, I said, yeah, I'll pick it up. I'll do it. I'll clear my schedule. And because I'd been doing other events, I'd been doing all sorts of things prior to that, and so that's what I threw myself into. And also, there were other projects he was working on. He was involved in um, subversive counterculture activism as well as mainstream activism. And there were a number of causes and projects he'd started devoting himself to, and I jumped into them. Squatastic, and there was a project he was working with Phoenix on, and so I picked up the slack there as well. I figured I'd pick up all the things that he had been basically left undone, and so I threw myself into it wholeheartedly. You know, 20-hour weeks, 20-hour day, or 18-hour days between organizing a festival and then doing the other activist work. And the Festival of Life came, and it was I really upgraded it. It was the best one ever. I managed to get the park as well outside the Holborn halls where we were using. There was a big park, and it got the rights to use the park to do a free festival for activism. So I brought all the activists together, and in that process, I'd sort of 2.0'd up the other activist work that I was involved in. I don't know how I managed to do that. Somehow I managed to pull rabbits out of hats with that festival. A lot of people did me a lot of favors, and it was a resounding success. Even though I'd spent most of the money on throwing the festival in the park, which was really just activism, speakers corner, and various different groups doing, you know, conscious information regarding political structures, financial structures. And this was before the Occupy had really taken root. So I would say that this was a big part of what made Occupy come together. And because this was it was that time of the year. It was, what was it? When was it? June, July? Was it July? And there had been groups of people that had been protesting against the banks already, and they'd been close to Parliament, but they'd been kicked out of Parliament, and we brought them in there, and they were sort of instrumental for starting Occupy. So somehow a lot of people got together and hubbed together, and I'd created a space. I had a lot of money from the festival because it's not for profit. So I was like adamant that if I'm going to run this festival, I want to pump all extra cash into that festival. Because that festival, I'm doing this for Alex. So I want to make sure that he would have loved to have seen all the activists get together and have a space where they can really network and share information and get the public interfacing, and all the people that come to our lifestyle festival, they need to know about this stuff as well, because they're all lovely and organic raw food and grow your own food and, you know, ethical responsibility, which is great, but they also needed to know about the world. So that started a whole chapter, man. And before I knew it, I had my finger in a whole lot of pots. And after the festival, um, um, I put a lot of time and energy into that,
Hmm.
because I'd
Yeah.
basically picked up slack for supposedly half, but more than half of the festival, actually, probably about 2/3 of the festival.
Yeah.
And my ex-wife had helped me as well. I mean, I'd done most of the um, heavy lifting, you could say.
Hmm.
And then I continued with Phoenix. Phoenix and myself already clicked, and he's Phoenix. He's the oldest activist in London, like probably the most prolific activist in the UK.
Okay.
And so we were working on a couple of projects together, and before I knew it, we were like in the House of Commons, and we were petitioning the members of Parliament, and we were sort of making some grounds. And I had a lot of positive reporting, had a good crew of reporters in our hands, so to speak, who we could rely on to be our voice mouthpiece for what was happening. You know, to the Guardian was our like main sort of outlet for like true information, and that sort of got bigger and bigger, and we started doing one project, and we opened another project, and we were opening these community centers. This was the idea. Once I'd gotten into the activism, I'd sort of just been sucked in. And I was like, okay, I'll finish this. Okay, well, I'll finish that. Okay. Well, actually, this needs to go there, needs to go there, needs to go there. And I didn't really have a grand vision. And what we then decided between us, Phoenix and myself, was that we were going to start a whole lot of community projects, and we are going to put teams in all these community projects and different, like, work our way across London. And we were going to basically open squats, fix the place up, get community projects running in each squat and move them across, and basically get the community to support and let them be a part of the movement. And so we started recruiting the community from different locales where we were doing these projects and offering services and assistance to the community, like the local community. So it was really positive. We were getting really good press, positive press, because we were
What were you,
like doing.
what were you guys what were you actually doing? Like when you say like you're doing these projects and stuff like this, like what are you doing? Like building gardens or like
Well, yes, what we would do is we would get the local communities together, and we would bring them together to come and have meetings, because in the old days there used to be local councils.
Mhm.
And the local communities would get together and they would discourse, they would discuss what they do and don't want in their community. And then
Okay.
we could represent them in House of Commons and get members of Parliament involved and say, listen, this community, da, 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 this is what's going on here. We're working with these guys. This is what we want. We've been having these meetings. Feed it back to this MP who's in this district. Have a meeting with him. Say, this is what's going on. This is what we've been doing. This is our location. This is our different projects. Then we also, one of the things we did was a gallery, which was an art gallery. And
Okay.
so we got all sorts of different art together. We got the community to be a part, for them to bring their art, local artists, and presenting different arts that were sort of counterculture specifically, that were giving a message, that were relevant as well. Another project we were doing was we were helping the local community, giving them classes for how to grow your own food, workshops for how to um, health, and um, for people who couldn't afford it, coming for yoga classes. And so we had people that were willing to donate their time, and basically community meetings, discussions for what people didn't want, so that people could build up, so that the community could become strengthened, and they could come to our space and we could offer them resources that they needed. And so they would need things for their children and stuff, and we could get resources
Mm.
because we were connected in a network.
Okay.
And that sort of mushroomed out. And then Phoenix and myself were talking. I said to him, listen, dude, let's do it. Let's go big. Let's go into the square mile. And so we went into the square mile and we took this prolific old couple of buildings, which were like historic for activism, when we started the Bank of Ideas. And that became like a very big movement. Um, you know, we got celebrities to sign onto our court documents. Took UBS to court. We were arguing in court that they had actually gotten this building illegally, even though it was legal. They had pulled a stunt, collapsing pension funds, but had managed to keep this property on their books.
Who is this?
UBS,
What is UBS?
biggest Swiss bank in the world,
Okay.
most biggest corrupt bank in the world, huge, Switzerland.
Okay.
McDonald's, Coca-Cola, all of them lots used to invest their money through this. Church of England, who pays for cluster bombs? Church of England will invest their money into UBS. Example.
Okay.
That money will be invested through UBS to other ones in military industrial complex, and Palestinian children have problems walking after that.
Okay.
And the money came from church contributions, UBS. So anyway, we were in court with them. This was a big deal because UBS is a we had a team of legal counsel of the Queen's Council. There's a council of barristers that's panel for the Queen. So we had one of her counsellors do pro bono for us, and a team of barristers and a team of lawyers with that, and aides and everything. And the Magic Circle was up against us, which is the most prolific legal firm in the UK, and they literally are the Magic Circle for a reason,
Okay.
not just
So
a name.
I'm just looking at the internet. UBS. This is for everybody listening who's unfamiliar, uh, especially those in America. UBS is a multinational bank and financial services company that was formerly known as the Union Bank of Switzerland. It is the largest Swiss bank and the largest private bank in the world. UBS has a presence in many major financial centers, including the United States. The services offered are retail and commercial banking, investment management, wealth management, cash management, commercial financing, credit cards, mortgage planning, deposits, and securities backed lending. So there you go. It's headquartered in Zurich and Basel, Switzerland, and
Are they
has
bigger than JP Morgan?
okay. Let's
Did they
let's
say
take
biggest bank in the world?
UBS
Is that right
bigger.
at the beginning?
How big? Uh, it's the world. it's one of the world's largest banks. Um,
Yeah. So
assets
it's the
under management.
equivalent of JP Morgan, I would say.
Yeah, assets under management are approximately 6 trillion.
Yeah. Yeah, that's UBS. So they're a behemoth, and uh,
Is-
anyway, they
What
had
were you
stolen the
saying?
pension fund,
Okay, yeah, yeah,
and part of that was this building, these couple of buildings, and these buildings were worth about, at the time, uh, probably I'd say about $300 million. And we were arguing that this should be basically sold, and dividends returned to the pension fund,
yeah.
which had been played on the market, and they'd lost the pension fund. How the heck do you do that? A lot of pensioners were being shafted. So anyway, we took this prolific building. How we took this building is just crazy, man. This building had security, and we took the building under the noses of the security that were patrolling, walking around the block of this building, because they didn't want activists in here.
Okay.
And Occupy had already started while we were doing our other projects, and so we'd been going to speak to Occupy. And at Occupy, we'd met Chris, who was really cool, and he became our third. There were three of us. We made a triangle, and Chris was really good. He was good on into the economics and into the money. He was a really lovely, solid, authentic, ethical guy. Like like Phoenix and myself, we resonated. And then we got a small team of people, and so we had a whole lot of people that were on the ground just reporting for us, um, walking up and down in different clothes, people with different suits of clothes like bags, with walkie talkies telling us where the guys were walking the security. And we climbed up the face of the building with huge fire ladders, and climbed onto the ledge, and climbed from the ledge up to the next ledge, and over the roof of this big building. And then we walked on planks between the buildings, like across the top.
Yeah.
And my night vision's exceptional. So I was able to see like where there were windows broken. I was like, those windows are like not open, those not closed. So because you can't break in. So we went into the building, and from the inside we changed the locks.
Oh.
And then we called a press conference. So we had the BBC, CNN, New Yorker, New York Times, Daily Mail, all of the big news outlets of the world, um, arriving there at 7:30, and we were making announcements that we were taking action against UBS. And part of the action was to take this building and to use this building for positive, constructive community building projects. And so yeah, we were in court with UBS, and we did this for a few months, and it was prolific, huge.
Now,
Um,
let me stop you there real quick. How did the cops not show up and absolutely
they
raid the
did,
shit out of you? No,
they
but how?
did,
Like, why didn't they like go in with tactical SWAT teams and just remove you
because
physically?
we didn't break the law.
But didn't you say you took over the building?
Yeah, but we didn't break in,
Okay,
and there was nobody in the building. The building was technically empty,
right.
so there was nobody in, and possession is 9/10 of the law. I mean, we were following the letter of the law. And then what we did is we had our people on the streets.
Yeah.
So once we had taken possession of the building, we let our networks know, and then there were thousands of people there with filming.
Okay, maybe I'm missing something here that because I'm unfamiliar with how it works legally. But so if a so in this is in Britain, England,
Yeah,
London.
it's pretty much the same everywhere in the world. Um, there is such a thing as squatting law,
Okay.
and there is a section, there is a legislation. It's the same in the US, it's the same in South Africa, all countries. So
Okay.
you've got to have your paperwork ready, and you stick your paperwork on the wall. So we
Okay.
had our people come and stick the paperwork on the wall to announce that building is now in our possession. So, and we didn't do anything wrong. There was no breaking and entering. And then we came to speak to the cops. We had a conversation with them. And by that time, the press was arriving, because we had staged it that our reporters were arriving. There were crowds in the streets. So the cops couldn't do anything. Not that they would either, because this is high profile. This is the square mile of London. And we were following the letter of the law. And
Okay.
because we were
Uh,
following,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So let's break this down a little bit. So the building, because the building was empty and unoccupied, and because you simply just walked into it through a window and didn't break anything, and then had some paperwork that you slapped up on the wall saying that you were taking possession, that you now could be in there legally and the cops couldn't take you out. But that but the building isn't your personal property, right? So how are
yeah.
so how are so whoever owns it, wouldn't they be able to kick you out?
Yeah, well, this was the whole thing about that building.
Okay.
It was being managed and held by UBS, but the ownership of this building was a very complex matter
Okay.
because it had been part of the pension fund. It had been connected to that previous work that had been going on. So
Yes.
even though UBS had it on their books, they weren't in, they didn't have anyone in the building. And
Okay.
so, technically speaking, it was an empty building, and they were trying to have the building written up as being, they wanted to break down the building and rebuild it because there's so much money in it.
Okay.
And we didn't want that. So, what it is you just have to basically have someone around the building who has been in the building for 24 hours. You can say, look, this is it. You know, we've been here 48 hours and the team doesn't know that we're here. So they didn't catch us. We
Yeah.
announced, oh, by the way, there's an etiquette to how you do this
Mhm.
properly. So you take possession of the building and then you announce that you've got the building and that you've got people living here and this is what's going on, and we're happy to meet you in court. So
Yeah.
then it's up to them to meet you in court. That's the law. So but then obviously we had Queen's Counsel representing us,
Yeah.
and we had, you know, loads of celebrities supporting us. Like
Yeah.
Tom York from Radiohead did a gig for us. So
Yeah.
we had Radiohead supporting us, and we had loads of different celebrities, and we had members of parliament supporting us. So we had been setting this up for a while
Yeah.
through our networks,
And the goal
and so it was,
and the goal
yeah.
was the goal to was the goal to just bring attention to um the pension fund being uh traded away, or were you trying to actually get the money back?
We weren't going to do that. We knew we wouldn't achieve that.
Yeah.
But what we did was we were able to bring a lot of attention. Then we turned the space into a convention center.
Okay.
And then we had thousands of people entering the building every day getting our positive propaganda.
Mm-hmm.
And we had groups, all the groups, different groups, everything from Greenpeace to just you name the groups, they were there. We had a huge building with spaces. So we had all the different groups setting up. We had 2 different recording studios. We had artists coming there to record music. We had performances being done there. We had loads of artists coming. We had famous actors, famous comedians coming to do sets for us. What's that famous street artist? He came to do a piece for us
Oh, I think
in
you're talking.
London.
What the hell is his name? Um,
There were two. There were 2 of them. Anyway,
yeah,
we
yeah.
had like we.
Banksy?
It wasn't Banksy. The other
Oh, okay.
one.
Oh, okay.
There was another one. What are they called? Anyway, like we got a lot of different people to support us in different ways, and then what we did was we opened it as a center, and it was a bank of ideas. So we had people coming towards us, and we weren't using money. We were teaching people that you can do things without money. So we did without money what Occupy did with money, and we were like, no, we don't want money. People come, they want to give us money. We don't want money. I'd rather you give us 2 hours of your time.
Okay.
And so we got people from the streets to come and be a part of our teams. And so we had such a resource of people working different, people with careers and experience that could add to our infrastructure. And for example, when WikiLeaks guy came, we set them all up. We accommodated them, the team, and we gave them one of our computer rooms to use as an HQ because
Okay.
we had a couple of computer rooms full of computers and rigged up and set up our techie teams. And
Yeah.
we had like, world class hackers and
Mm.
had all sorts of things going on there. So, and it was big. Like the staff was like, 100 people.
Okay.
And we were feeding the homeless. The homeless were coming to get food from us, and everybody else was coming to get food from us. We had a qualified chef cooking for everybody, preparing the food. We were getting all the donations from Pret a Manger and all the other sort of, food outlets and stuff. So, because we were making a positive press, so what we were able to do was to be able to bring lots of attention, positive press attention towards many of the issues. Occupy was failing miserably because they kept getting drunk people being interviewed by the press and talking nonsense. And so Occupy was being discredited. But we had a space that we could control, and we weren't allowed to be open to the public, by the way.
Okay.
So, like, my idea was like, well, can't we be open to friends? Yeah. So if I'm outside and I'm talking to people and I'm like, shake your hand and introduce myself, now we're friends. So people come here. Is it open to the public? No, it's not open to the public. You have to become my friend if you want to come in. But I'm quite friendly. Shake your
Yeah.
hand,
So,
hi, introduce you. Now we're friends. Please come on in. So
yeah.
we
Yeah.
weren't open to the public. We were open to the friends. But our
There's a
friends were like
different process.
thousands of people walking in the door every day.
Okay.
Strangers that we just befriended. And in
Yeah.
that way, we were making these personal connections. So we started training all of our teams to operate in that way. And it mushroomed out, and it was quite a powerful journey. There was a lot of positive um, information coming out. We were able to have quite a lot of interaction with the members of parliament. Lots of the bills being passed. That was one of our primary focuses. We were working on the bills, researching the bills, going back to the members of parliament, showing them what the problems were in the bills before they went to vote.
Yeah.
Going to meet with them, saying, "Listen, have you read this bill?" "No." "Well, section so, number, read it. It says this." They'd be, "Really? My aide hasn't brought this to my attention yet, but we've got too many bills." They had so many bills being pushed through the front. So we were acting as an infrastructure to help them figure out what were the dangerous parts of those bills, because we had loads of activists researching it. And so we could bring to their attention, like, this can be abused. This can be a problem. This isn't well worded. This can be interpreted in a lot of different ways. This has got to change. So it caused a lot of the bills to be slowed down and stopped through our work. For example, the House of Commons. And we had a lot of protests. If you remember in 2011, there were all those strikes in London. I don't know if you remember it.
I don't. I was not very conscious back
We
in
arranged a lot of
2011.
strikes
Yeah.
for different unions, and
Okay.
we put feet on the street for them and organized protests for them, and gave them the mouthpiece of the media and the support so that people could strike. And so
Yeah.
there were like a half a dozen big strikes that we organized as well for
Yeah.
different corporations that weren't really looking after their staff. We helped the vets, the ex-vets that were basically, we did lots of projects helping the vets because a lot of the vets are homeless. They're being sort of passed off. And we also did a lot of work to try and help single moms and people that were being evicted from their houses by the banks because of foreclosure,
Okay.
and the ethics behind the way that the banks were operating. So that's what we were doing, and it was very tiring, and I actually ended up getting malnutrition
Okay.
because I was working 18 hours a day, and I often didn't have time to eat, and I was like sort of playing like a role of like a fatherly figure to like hundreds of people, and having to sort of always be present, and you know you're dealing with a lot of anarchists, so people would want to like maybe get violent with each other, So I'd always be the one to step between these guys and say, "Come on, guys, come on. You guys know you want to hug and kiss. Let's get it on. Get these guys a room, you know." Um, Go in and chill the situation out, and um, bring everybody back to reality. Keep the team cohesive because there was a lot of tension. There was a lot of tension. We were bringing together all different sorts of groups of people and different groups of anarchists together, and some anarchists are crazy, and then trying to keep drugs out of the space as well because everybody wants to like take drugs, and we're like, no, 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 no. We're doing big work here. We can't be shut down because of drugs on premises. Sorry, because that would be something that could get you shut down.
Right.
So yeah, while we were doing this, we were in court with UBS, and that was a prolific court case as well.
And what was the court case was about the pensions?
Well, that's what we were arguing. They were trying to get rid of us, but they couldn't because we had a really good Queen's Counsel barrister, and they also had a couple of Queen's Counsel barristers. So like there was three of the Queen's Counsel were involved in this court case. It's quite prolific.
What is the Queen's Counsel?
Those are the lawyers that service the Queen,
Okay.
Queen of England. Those are the
Okay.
top barristers in the UK. If
Barrister is
you're
like a lawyer.
QC, it's like the top tier of the top lawyers.
Okay.
Like $5,000 an hour.
Okay. And they were doing a pro
$10,000 an
bono for
hour.
you?
Yeah, of course.
So
Celebrities got like
what
got this helped us.
what happened with the case?
Well, in the end, you know, we had to leave the space, but we had 3 months to do the work that we were doing, and we'd been able to make fairly big dent in the bills that were being passed. This is one of the reasons we went big because they were passing bills faster than we could keep up. And we were like, we've got to get into the House of Commons. And in order to have a proper presence in the House of Commons, we need to have a huge media presence. And in that huge media presence, we can then single out members of parliament that want to be using our media presence and we're using them. And so everybody's getting what they want in order for us to slow down these justice wheels that were basically stamping and signing one bill after another. So that was a big part of our work, as well as organizing protests and organizing. We did a lot of protests, a number of protests, 20, 30,000 people on the streets kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. I want to read you something real quick. Give me 1 second. I have to go grab it. Okay, so I just want to read something out of this book. So this book is called Chaos. Charles Manson, CIA, and the Secret History of the 60s in the United States, written by Tom O'Neill with Dan Piepenbring. This has been a fascinating book. I definitely recommend it to anybody who is at all curious about the Charles Manson and family stuff and the 60s. So the part of the book I'm in right now, the author is just he's been working on for almost 200 pages, working up to the intersection between basically the Manson murders and intelligence agencies. And right now he's talking about breaking down COINTELPRO and Chaos, which were programs implemented by the CIA and FBI to combat Black Panthers. Black Panthers, Martin Luther King Jr., other stuff like that. And there was a part in here. Okay, let's see. So Moreau never led the light. Okay, I'll just read this part here. The FBI's role may have never come to light if not for the Citizens Committee to investigate the FBI. an audacious crew of activist burglars who took it upon themselves to break into a small FBI field office in Media, Pennsylvania, just west of Philadelphia. One night in March 1971, the group took a crowbar to that office's dead-bolted door, stuffing suitcases with papers, revealing the FBI's domestic spying, which they soon parceled out to the press. Hoover was President Hoover was in high dungeon. I don't know what that means. The group's methods were straight out of the FBI playbook.
Mega
They,
respect.
yeah, they cased the office for months, sending a woman in disguised as a college student to get a sense of the building's security. Um, in his fury, Hoover allocated some 200 agents to track down the burglars, but they were never found. Only in 2014 did they reveal themselves. They were motivated, they said, by a sense that the government had lied to them about Vietnam and that conventional protests had proven useless. So, and then the existence of COINTELPRO was the single most earth-shattering revelation in the stolen documents. So I thought that was very interesting. Because, thinking about America's recent history with, there was what was it, back in 2001 in Portland there, like Antifa was, fighting the cops for like 100 days. And there were the various areas, I think even here in Seattle, where there were parts of the blocks of the city, like, taken over and like occupied. But it, and then like various riots and whatnot. And it almost seemed to me, because of kind of like how horrific those instances were of activism. It kind of seemed to me that they were almost implemented to discredit activism, to put a terrible shine on activism. And
I think they were orchestrated. We had the same problem in the UK.
okay,
We had these people who used to try and come to our protests and try and cause trouble.
yeah,
And so we had to keep track of who was part of our activist team, and like, who's this group here, who these guys in hoodies, and
yeah,
actually alert and make a press alert to the fact that these guys got nothing to do with us. They're not part of our thing.
yeah,
So that we couldn't be pinned.
yeah,
And I believe that they are bought and paid for by the deep state.
yeah. Yeah. I'm 100% there with you. I think it was in Oregon. I don't think it was here in Seattle, but there was kind of like the same thing where um, some territory in Portland or something like that was taken over, and was even patrolled by just guys with probably girls too, with guns, with AR-15s and whatnot. And I think there were a few murders, cars shot up, and from what I gathered, rampant drug use and rapes, and just it was like chaos over there.
Messy.
And yeah, but now, but hearing from you, which is why I wanted to talk about the subject of the activism that you did. Um, what you guys are doing seems like the absolute polar opposite uh, of what was happening in places like Seattle and in Oregon.
We were preaching civil disobedience
Yeah.
and peacefulness.
Okay.
Peaceful civil disobedience.
Yeah.
Don't do what you're told. Don't follow their rules, which are corrupt, but do so peacefully. That was our motto.
And you were aimed at the bank, this bank, and the banks. These other these things that happened in the U.S. It was like aimed at the cops, or aimed at the president, or it was very clear that they were not aimed where they should be, where that energy should be aimed, which is like what you guys are doing with these banks. Um,
We had a lot of difficulty. I used to go and speak at Occupy um, when I could. I didn't really want to, but like they used to call me, and people used to say, "Listen, dude, like they were chanting your name. You have to go there." I was like, and then I'd go there, and I made a lot of enemies within the Occupy ranks because I used to basically say, like, "Listen, you guys are not yet to pick a fight with St. Paul's. This is a religion. It's really yes, yes, yes. It's involved, but like you got to pick your enemies. Your enemies at the moment are the banks. We need to recognize what's the real problem in the world. The economic system is the evil. So we were constantly trying to bring people back to focusing on the money changes because that's where all of the that's where most of the corruption is. It's around money, really, at the end of the day. Um, I don't know if I told you this, but myself, Phoenix, and three of us were abducted by MI5,
I was hoping, yeah, I wanted to get into this.
and I was drugged.
Okay.
They drugged me in the water that they gave me to drink. I
Okay.
know when I'm drugged. I can't, I've lived a full life. I know when I'm on something, right?
Yeah.
And then they tried to play some fast one on us
Okay.
with terrorist legislation. Prior to
Right.
this, they had labeled us as a terrorist organization.
Yeah.
We had a lot of deep state attacks on us, and they were trying to play a game with me. And you know, I ended up making the two MI5 guys lose their temper and get abusive, and that's how we were able to shut this whole thing down and go, listen. My legal representative said, "Nah, this has become abuse. You shut that recorder off. We're done here." So, um, but they were out. They were out to get us.
So you were out trying to get a bite to eat, and a black van shows up, and mass dudes pop out and and squirrel you away in some hole somewhere.
No, the cops just took us. Just
Okay.
came to take us because we were the ringleaders.
Okay.
Because we were the guys who were like the three of us were like in charge. We were the guys who were going into court to represent the case. You know,
Okay.
to go and sit in the courts, and they took us in just for questioning
Right.
and handed us over to this other group of people
Yeah.
who were a special branch of MI5.
Okay.
No charges,
Mhm.
nothing. It was all like very confusing exactly what was going on paperwork wise.
Okay.
We'd been taken in by the cops. The cops were like, no, we didn't press charges. We just held you for like 24 hours, which is our right. And then we handed you over to these guys for questioning. But anyway, so the whole process took, took, what was it, 2 days or whatever it was, 2 or 3 days. And yeah, the MI5 was basically, they dragged me. Cheeky buggers. They probably thought they'd be able um, to because they dragged us, they thought they'd be able to manipulate us
Okay. Into confessing something, or
into. They didn't realize that like what I did was um, this thing's recording, and so this guy's reading this whole statement of national security to me,
yeah.
and I'm falling asleep while he's
Okay.
reading it. And then I'd stop and I'd wake up and I go, sorry, like I feel like I've been drugged. I'm half asleep. Like I can't stay awake. Could you read that again, please? So you read it again. I fell asleep again. Sorry, I think I've been drugged or something. I keep falling asleep. Could you read that again, please? And I kept doing it to him until he lost his temper.
Okay.
Started shouting at me. I just didn't play ball.
Mhm.
And once he started shouting and losing his temper, then I like pointed at the recording thing. Looked at my legal representative who had been sent to me from the QC, one of the barristers, and they shook their head at him and they said, "No, this is now becoming harassment and abuse. We can't tolerate this."
Hmm.
So I had to shut down the recording. These two guys, I think they got badly reprimanded for that because it didn't work out well for them, so they had to drop the whole thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, they wanted to label us as terrorists
Hmm.
because we had organized all of the strikes, and there were a number of strikes. This is big. These strikes are a big story.
Yeah.
Big strikes, big companies, affecting payrolls, affecting wages, affecting like having huge consequences
Yeah.
where infrastructure stopped because of the strike.
Mhm.
But employees were being unfairly handled, and you know that was
Yeah.
what it was. So we
So
were.
what other attacks from the deep state did you suffer?
Magical.
Yeah, let's get into that.
This is why I couldn't leave the building. Every time I left the building, crazy stuff started happening, man. Crazy stuff. It was like so hectic. And I kept finding these really advanced magical sigils on the walls. I was like, holy crap, this person knows what they're doing. So we had a lot of artists that were doing art on the walls. And it was quite prolific. So yeah, these sigils were happening, and I had noticed it a while ago that we were up against the magic circle. Now the magic circle is literally the magic circle. If you know about the magic circle, they're the most potent legal firm in the UK, but they're much more than a legal firm. They attack and undermine people in ways that are beyond legality. I've got clients that have come to me in the past, high profile cases in the UK, where they were under attack, where a client comes to me and they tell me nothing about anything. I go into trance and I explain to them that they are under attack by a group of powerful masons that are using spells and psychic abilities. And I ask them what kind of legal case they're involved in. And they are like, wow, how do you know this? Turns out they're involved in these fairly prolific legal cases that were running in the UK at that time. And to the point where a bottle of wine explodes on the table. Explodes. Just like crazy stuff. Red wine.
Mhm.
And other kinds of things happening. Just lots of supernatural events happening to the point where people are becoming afraid. And it's actually quite a well-known thing. That's why they're called the magic circle. That's why people are afraid to tangle with the magic circle, because they're a legal firm, but they're more than a legal firm. So anyway, scaling it back, my friend had passed away under strange circumstances. And like I told you, I was having this communication with him, and that's how I knew he wasn't in the body, and that's how I knew that it had happened. And because I'd slipped into a trance and I'd seen this and I'd been shown this, and my ancestors had opened the doors, and all of those that weren't alive were dancing around me. Yeah. And so in this space, I was maintaining a barrier, a psychic barrier around the building
Okay.
continually. And I had to apply a certain amount of my concentration to maintaining that barrier in the background of my consciousness 24/7.
Hmm.
If I left the building, there was violence in the building, windows were broken, people went crazy. everything went wild. Everybody was like, "You've got to come back, Franklin." My phone was ringing. People, we need you back here. We need you. Like every time you leave the building, things get out of hand. People were losing their minds. People were hallucinating. There was crazy stuff going on, and then I'd come back and I'd sort of like bring everything back down to ground zero. Um, so like everybody, sort of had respect for me. So when I came and I spoke to people, we all like chilled out. Phoenix was the most experienced and most connected of us, and I was the shaman in the group. And so I played that sort of role of the like a village elder or something in to our community, and so part of that was recognizing that the attacks were starting, and there were a lot of instances where this would happen, and I would have to go and personally peruse the walls and search out magical spells and go, "That's a spell. That's a sigil," and try and decode what the sigil was.
Are you talking about outside or inside?
Inside, realized we had 1 to 2,000 people walking through our building every day.
Yeah, friends.
But I had a big group of people at the door that we had trained, which were part of our. We had a big team,
Hmm.
and we were talking about a big building, right?
Hmm.
2 buildings, actually.
Are those buildings
We
still
got
there?
another group. Hey,
Are they still there? The buildings?
the buildings are still there. Yeah,
What are they called?
27 Sun Street. Is it
Sun.
27 or 25? It's the old UBS building. It's Is it 8 floors? It's an
Did you
office
say?
block, 8 floors.
Did you say 27 Sun? SUN?
Sun Street. I think is it 27 Sun Street, 25 Sun Street, something like that. It's been years, huh? Let's see.
Well, when I bring it up, uh, 27 Sun Street, City of London. Looks
Is
like
it
there's.
27 or 25 or 24 or
It just looks like construction. Luxury apartments. But
have they
anyways,
reconstructed that by now? They wanted to get permits to break the buildings. One
yeah,
of the
probably.
first things we had to do was to get health and safety reports, and we had to get our teams in there, electricians, have the electric sorted. We
Yeah,
had to have a surveyor come in, do the surveillance on the buildings.
yeah.
We had to get a lot of legal documents sorted. We had to get teams of our activists in. We were fixing the place. We were painting the place. We basically fixed the roofs. We fixed the place up. They were trying to get the place to get as rundown as possible. They were leaving the windows open upstairs
Yeah,
in winter.
yeah.
And this had been going on for a long time, and we'd been scoping out what they were doing, and we knew that they were trying to get a permit to demolish this building, because there's a
Okay,
lot
yeah,
of money in demolishing and building buildings in London,
right.
sadly.
So the sigils. So you got people coming in, they're drawing little doodles. What are these things? What do these things look like? How and like where did you find them? Were they hiding them? Were you just like
Yeah,
feeling them out?
yeah. They were hiding them, trying to hide them. Like we had lots of people doing all sorts of art, but there
Right.
wasn't the artists doing the art, because I used to survey the art myself. And then
Yeah.
suddenly, like I'd feel something was wrong in the building, so I'd use geomancy and I'd go for it.
Okay.
And I'd have my guides just lead me there, and I'd stop, and there it is, bang, wow, look at that. And it looked Masonic
Okay. What
in
does that
terms
mean?
of
Like,
Rosicrucian.
okay.
You can create sigils
Yeah.
using there's different ways. They look like the kind of sigils that would be created using the rose cross.
Okay. I don't know what that means, but like lines and dots and
Yeah, it's if you look at a seal, You can create
Okay.
seals of angels, seals. If you look at the seals of the angels, and these sigils were drawn using the rose
Gotcha.
cross.
Okay.
So it's high magic.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you not acquainted to it, you wouldn't know what it was. If you didn't recognize it, you would just go right past you.
Yeah.
But
I've
it's
seen
highly
the. I mean,
refined, and it's not something everybody can do.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, in my research, I've seen little things like that. It would probably stand out. So would you? So you'd see it, you'd look at it, you try to decipher it, and then you destroy it.
Yes,
Was there
remove
a
it.
particular way to get rid of it, or you just paint it over, or take that
Well,
wall out?
I would use energy medicine,
Hmm.
and when I was finished with the energy medicine, I'd have people come and clean it off
Hmm.
using um, cleaning chemicals, and then
Okay.
paint over it, and
Yeah.
paint a piece of art there.
Gotcha.
Bring new life, new art. I had so many artists in the building, and so yeah, I mean, this was going on, and people were under attack, and sometimes people would just be losing it.
Okay.
People would be literally going what seemed, to all intents and purposes, schizophrenic of sorts, possessed, but
Yeah.
people that weren't normally like that.
Yeah.
Straight people, people that weren't on drugs, people that come from a background of a career and not,
Yeah.
So it would be incredible. Like, it'd be people I've been working with for like 2 months.
Yeah.
I'd leave the building once and come back, and they're like having a nervous breakdown. They don't understand what's going on. And we'd have to like settle everybody down and have a group meeting
Yeah.
and sit down and have a sing song.
Okay.
I would channel music, and I'd like, somebody pick up a guitar, let's channel. Play something quickly, I'll sing, and
Yeah.
spell sing, you know.
Okay. Cool. Spell
Yeah,
sing
yeah,
to break the darkness.
yeah.
Um. Uh. High shamanism there. Um. Did you explain to your friends and associates in the building that what what you were
The people,
interpreting?
they were, Phoenix knew,
Okay.
Chris knew. Phoenix is a pagan.
Yeah.
He understands telepathy. We operate on another level. There's like,
Mhm.
you know, there were a lot of people there that were highly attuned. We had a
Right.
lot of highly attuned people in the space. Not everybody, but we did have. So a lot of people were aware of it, and they were like a little bit scared of it, you
Right.
know.
I mean, it's definitely pretty freaky. So, okay.
Suddenly there'd be presences in the building.
Yeah. What? So, I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think of what I'm asking here is like you got these circles of evil sorcerers, and they're focusing their power on you guys who are trying to do good in the world.
But
Um,
getting in front of the BBC and the CNN all the time.
yeah.
And so
Um,
actually getting a mouthpiece
mhm,
against UBS.
yeah. And UBS is employing this dark magic, uh, this very
As
powerful,
unbelievable as it sounds, yeah.
yeah, to counteract. Um, God, like how, and I'm trying to think about your role and everything, everything we've talked about, and the way you've walked through the world and the places you've been and all this training and stuff like that. And it's like, uh, like where are the others? Where are the others like you that are putting in putting in the effort to do things like this, to to fight against the darkness? Because it sounds like what you're describing, it seems very very powerful and prolific. and I'm thinking, I'm like, okay, it's like, do do people have to go through what you've gone through to be able to have the sorts of energies available to fight that type of darkness? Because it doesn't seem like there's too many people like you out there doing it. That I mean that I know of.
I think there are people. I came across people.
Yeah.
Phoenix is one, for
Yeah.
example. He's quite sussed, you know,
Mhm.
understands principles of natural magic. It's not something we really talk about much because it's just everybody knows. Like talking about a bunch of pagans here, a lot of pagans
Mhm.
who've been pagans for decades, and there are people. Um, Russell Brand kept trying to get into our space,
Okay.
and that was before he started like looking like me.
He does. He did. He does. Right.
Now, okay, see, here's the story. Russell Brand was trying to get into our buildings. I was playing this role of this kind of role I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And Russell Brand and I was blocking him the whole time. I was like, no, I don't want Russell Brand in here. And Phoenix was like, maybe we can use this guy. And I was like, dude, if you want to bring him in, I'm gonna walk. This guy's vibe does work for me, and it's really weird because I saw him like 6 months later, and I was like, holy crap, yeah, holy crap. Now suddenly he's looking like me, or he wasn't like that before,
Yeah.
right? He dyes his beard though, clearly.
Oh.
Um, but next thing he was trying to get into our activist group, but he didn't have that look or that thing, and then suddenly he did, you
Okay.
know, suddenly he did. And yeah, you know, um I used to wear those kind of clothes that he's wearing, by the way. Like I just wore whatever clothes were donated to me and given to me because yeah, I was wearing like, whatever. um Now I'm like much more low key. I like to wear low key stuff,
Yeah.
but don't like to be in fashion minded consciousness.
So do you think that Russell Brand was actively, consciously trying to working as an agent of darkness to infiltrate your group and so
Look,
all sorts of
they they were chanting my name in Occupy
yeah,
for me to come there and talk.
yeah,
And then when I came to talk, like the people were like clapping and stuff, and then Occupy was shut down.
right,
So Occupy had their bank account shut down because of a fire where money was lost. So they
okay,
had to have a bank audit done, but Occupy couldn't trust everybody. So they started chanting my name again. I had to come there and they were like, oh, we want you to be on the committee. And I said, look, dude, I'm running the Bank of Ideas. I'm in the middle of a prolific court case. They were like, please. Like, there are not many people in London who we see as being ethical. He
okay,
was there that day.
mhm,
So then I had to be on the committee. There were like 5 different people that were auditors. And then I said, look, I'll do it if Chris comes with me,
okay,
because Chris is the guy I trust. He's with me at the Bank of Ideas. He's got much more experience and knowledge about money than I do. He used to
right,
work in banking. He knows about it. So if Chris is there, he can figure out and explain to me what's going on because I can't pretend to know about. And everybody was like, yeah, that's perfect. We love Chris. Chris is amazing. So Chris and I then had to be overseeing this Occupy audit, and it took a lot of my time. I had to go there and sit with these people doing these audits like 2 hours a day for like 4 or 5 days in order to get the audit done so that they could provide the audit to the bank and have the Occupy bank account unlocked because there was foul play
mm,
regarding money.
gotcha,
So, like, Russell Brand was there that day. He was in the crowd and he was watching, and I saw him watching me intently. And I thought, who's this guy? He was like almost watching me as if to go like, what have you got? Why does everybody want you around?
hmm,
Like, and then he was trying to get into the Bank of Ideas. And I felt really self-conscious by this guy. I was like, it's almost like he's staring at me in a weird way. I didn't feel comfortable.
yeah,
And then coincidence, 3 months later, he's talking about India and yoga and spirituality and shamanism and big beard
Mm.
and like the whole thing, and the clothes changed, and I was like, wow. And everybody was teasing me and going like, dude, you've got a secret admirer, Russell Brand, and they were like all teasing me because like suddenly he's going that way.
Yeah.
But so I don't know, but it just let's just say it could be a really uncanny coincidence. And he used spirituality to vault him in. Look at what his shows are about now. They're all about politics.
Well, yeah. Isn't he a born again now too?
This is what I'm saying is he used the whole Vedic spirituality thing to get himself into the limelight, and
Right.
then he's put himself. Now he's talking politics.
Right, and he's a born again Christian.
I don't know. Like I don't follow him. I don't watch any of his stuff.
No, I think I
Um,
think he is. I think that's the way it went.
is that the
But
way it
yeah,
went?
it's very um it's not fucking curious. It's not ambiguous. It's very clear how people like him operate. I've
Yeah.
I fuck sorry, I don't mean to swear. I've seen it before. I've had it done. I've been right next to someone who has done the same thing with me, changed their appearance, you know, that's that sort of thing. And it's a certain type of energy, and once you see it and experience it, yeah, then it pops out right away. But it seems like there's always going to be
Oh,
people who will be attracted to the type of energy that's actually doing things from an authentic place.
and after I left, he befriended Phoenix,
Yeah.
and he started doing work with Phoenix, and Phoenix let him in. And I still remember speaking to Phoenix saying, why are you letting that guy in? Phoenix let him into the activist community so that he could get credit, because I didn't want him to get credit. Like he's not part of our community. You don't get to come in here and just be a part of our community. I'm sorry.
Yeah, yeah, you
Like
gotta
you could have been here helping us, speaking on topics like long time ago. Like for example, um, Tom York and
yeah,
Radiohead.
yeah.
They helped us a lot.
Okay.
They really helped us. They really came and did speeches for us. They did promos on our building to talk about what was going on with the banks, and we basically fed them information, and they were our mouthpiece.
Yeah,
And Tom York was so happy with the work we were doing. He did a gig for us, for our team,
yeah,
like a small gig for us in our building.
yeah,
So there are celebrities out there that care, like good
yeah.
guys.
This is what I would have done. I would have been like, okay, okay, brand. So come with me, and I'll take him to the kitchen, and I'll take him to where the vegetables are, and I had him a potato peeler, and I'd say, you see all those potatoes? You're gonna peel every single one of those potatoes, and when all those potatoes are done, you're gonna peel those potatoes. Okay. Once you get a really, really good at peeling potatoes, where you're going to move up, you're going to cut the potatoes. And after you're done getting really, really good at cutting the potatoes, you're going to take the potatoes and you're going to put them in the pot and you're going to boil them. And eventually you're going to work your way up to where you make a really, really good potato stew. And then you're going to ladle all that potato stew out to the homeless. Okay. We're talking maybe 2 to 3 years here of potato work. All right. And once you've protected, what do gotten that mastered, we'll see where we're at. That's where those people belong. If they truly want to do what they proclaim to do, and you're getting those types of vibes, that's what you have to do.
Yeah. So anyway, getting back to the story, I ended up pushing myself too far, and both Chris and Phoenix tried to warn me.
Yeah,
You know, try to say to me, "Look, dude, you do realize like you're an incredibly powerful guy, right? But like you're only human. You've
Right.
got to have you time. You can't just give of yourself to the community all the time because you're going to deplete yourself. You're going to get burnt out. And I got a bit burnt out because I got so involved with everybody. Like I was sort of, we had a lot of young girls there. We had, and guys, you know what it's like, man. Guys not knowing how to behave. And so I like gave like protection to a lot of people, you know, and made sure, kept an eye on everybody, like what's going on with her. Okay, like Jolene, Angela, um, we could get like maybe those two ladies. Let's have a meeting. I'm worried. She's 17 and she's hot. There's loads of guys who want to nail her. Can we have a circle of women around her, protecting her, keeping her safe, and just keep me in the loop with what's going on? And, creating like networks to protect people because we had that kind of thing happening. And we had like young girls that came off the street that have been like run away from home coming to our building. And we're like, how do we deal with this? Like, and some of them are really beautiful girls. And like, all these guys, they're unethical. They might be activists, but they're like walking penises, you know? And so they don't know how to deal with the fact that they've got a young pretty girl around. And so anyway, there was like
Marry her.
that's just one
You marry
sorry.
her and you have children.
Yeah, well, activists, I
Yeah,
don't want to say too much bad stuff, but like there's a lot of sexual shenanigans that's not cool
it can
from
get pretty
activism.
retarded pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I lived in an activist house for a while.
Yeah. Who's
Uh,
screwing who anyway? You know what I'm saying?
God, there wasn't any fucking screwing. Let me tell you, because there weren't really any girls. But if there would have been, oof. But yeah, I lived in an activist house for like three months, 3 months, I think, um, until it got SWAT raided and we were all in handcuffs. It was sketchy, but it was I was like the video editor guy. Um, God, there was this like little black Atlanta gangster dude who was, I don't know what the hell he was doing, and just lost, just some lost souls, me included.
That's often the case. So we were like scooping up all these lost groups and
Yeah,
bringing them into one zone and like showing them like we're a community.
yeah,
That's how this works.
yeah. There was no master
Structure.
shaman at all. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
So
So yeah,
yeah,
after that I had malnutrition
yeah,
and oh my gosh, my ex-wife had done a number on me
yeah.
financially.
Oh, was this the ex-wife we were talking about previously?
Yeah,
Yeah.
she had left me and then she was going to start a new job. So she was like sort of sorting herself out. So she basically used all of our money and I was
Okay.
cool. And she said she was going to put back, she was going to put back half of the money.
Yeah.
And then she depleted the overdraft and she was going to put that back. And then
Okay.
she depleted the credit card. I didn't know she had emptied it all out and didn't have a lot of money at that time. But I was expecting that there should have been at least a couple of $1,000 left.
Yeah.
And she had literally emptied out everything and basically maxed out my credit card, maxed out everything
Wow.
because she was a second card holder
Okay.
on my cards, my accounts. And so it turned them into joint accounts. So she just basically screwed me over. And when I got out, I was like, I didn't have a penny to my name. But luckily, I knew a lot of people and I was like, I got a lot of credit from the work I'd done. So it all sort of worked out okay. People helped me. But I basically had malnutrition and I had to basically just settle down and eat and get myself healthy again and get myself back in focus, get back into the real world, start working again because I hadn't been working in months,
Okay.
like my own work.
Yeah.
You know, when I lost my friend, I had decided that I was going to do this. And so I did, you know, th- organizing a festival is a lot of work. And then from there, doing this and doing this, before you know it, you've 6 months, you're like, you've been just busy for 6 months all the time, not generating money.
Yeah.
We paid ourselves like a miserable little amount for the festival, like minimum wage. We weren't doing it for the money,
Yeah.
just basically covering our costs, basically. And so, yeah, I came out and I had to sort of find my feet again, get healthy, get back into my work and start
Yeah.
focusing.
Yeah. Um, so when you talk about work, are you talking about your shamanism?
Yes, yes. Working with clients,
Gotcha.
sessions. A lot of the work that I would do would
Mhm.
involve all sorts of extrasensory perception work. Sometimes people come and they need this help or that help. Um,
Yeah.
so, I'll slip into a trance
Yeah.
and
Hold on. I want to talk about this, uh, but I want to get into a couple other things before we do that. Um, so we mentioned the deep state, and so um, what is your description, interpretation, understanding of what the deep state is?
Ay, ay, ay.
It's a small
Okay.
question. It's a
So,
small question, okay?
it's a small question with a big answer. So basically, all the huge corporations
Yeah.
have board of directors,
Okay.
and these are the big investors. And these big investors are often being managed by portfolio managers. And you'll have one person that might have a number of portfolio managers managing different portfolios of your investments. And that person would have representatives on 3 or 4 or 5 boards. And so you have a number of these really rich, really powerful people that hide in the shadows. But these people have huge sway in the board of directors of huge super corporations, big banks. Like an example in the US, JP Morgan, you know, um, um, industrial, military corporations, pharmaceutical corporations, various different corporations, Monsanto's, whatever, and they will have particular agendas. And so these people are in collusion with other people like themselves that are super rich and have all these portfolio managers managing all their investments. And they get together and the Bilderbergers, I don't know if you've heard about the Bilderbergers, I'm sure you have. They have these big Bilderberger meetings and they discuss like the generation to follow, like what is the plan for the world economically, legislatively, how can we move forwards? And these people then operate as a shadow government. And the shadow government then, like for example, in the UK, they'll have a whip, right? To whip
They
the
have a what?
MPs into line. They'll have a whip that will whip the MPs into line. It's literally called a whip.
A whip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They also have the Speaker in the House. Now, the Speaker of the House is a really important role. The Speaker of the House comes to actually reveal financial policies which are thought up in these think tanks, which are the representatives of these super rich people in these super corporations that have thought up how they want things to be. So they have these think tanks organize what needs to happen financially. This is then fed back through the Speaker of the House to Senate or to the members of Parliament or whatever. And they then have to vote on it. And then they've got the whip who works for them to whip the Senate or the members of MPs into alignment so that they can do what needs to be done. So the shadow government is really there's this deep state government that's operating on this level. Now these people are not representatives; they're not voted for, but they have incredible power financially, and so because they're involved in strategic positions and they've got their people in these think tanks, they can disseminate what kind of financial policies they want, and the financial policies then dictate political policies and everything else that follows as a relation of that coming from money. also, many of the agendas that we see coming to light these days, educational changes, woke changes, a lot of these changes are orchestrated by these think tanks that come up with these good ideas. Like, for example, that the word woman, now the teachers are teaching the woman is spelled with an X. So when your little girl goes to school, she's going to be taught to spell woman with an X or she'll lose marks. If she wants to pass and get high marks, she spells woman with an X. That's just one example of how they're adjusting the education system in order to maintain the mind control. So they are basically using these mind control techniques in schools to change our ideologies, our ideas, our philosophies, and be able to sculpt society and maintain society moving down a particular line, which they've considered very deeply because they've got a lot of people on their payroll to sit and discuss this and think about how this can go. Lots of think tanks operating behind the think tanks. So a think tank will be a think tank being fed to by think tanks. We had the same system when we did activism. We had working groups, and the working groups would split up into sub-working groups, and those working groups would split up into sub-working groups, and we'd all go into different rooms in the building, and we'd all have discussions, and then we'd feed them back to our working groups, and we'd feed them back to our working groups, and then we'd all get together for a meeting, and we'd have like 5 main working groups. So what did your working group coming? Well, we had 5 working groups that split up into 3 working groups each, and this was what we came out with from all of our working groups, and then we'd feed them all together and we'd get out an idea. So we used the same principles to organize ourselves and to get a cohesive structure going. This is how these people operate. And so yeah, they basically manipulate the state from backstage, and they've got secret armies, they've got secret military, because it's the industrial military corporation behind it. They've got black ops projects, right? They're obviously connected to those 3-letter agencies, but not officially so. But because of who they are, because of the money and the power that they've got and the think tank affiliations, they're able to open doors and make connections between those 3-letter agencies in order for something to be done off the book, so that the 3-letter agency can say, we have no knowledge of this, we're not involved. But actually, somebody high up in the 3-letter agency is connected to that person who's connected to the main person from our think tank, and they are aware that this is happening, and they are sort of oversight for it, but it's unofficial. And so you have all these black ops projects happening, which is research technology, and they generally have oversight coming from the industrial military corporations, very often because it relates to national security. So this is really what's going on. This is why the government, the politicians, have such a low level of clearance. They don't know what's happening. And most of the people within the organizations don't know what's happening. And there are all these levels of clearance above them that they don't know that even happening. And only there are very few people that have the kind of clearance to know about all these unofficial projects that are happening. And they protect the political infrastructure so that they can say that this is just a conspiracy theory, because we don't know about this. We're the Senate. We don't know about this. It must be conspiracy, it must be nonsense. But actually, there are layers and layers and layers above us. So the whole system's rigged, and it's structured to work in such a way. So that's my understanding of how this deep state operates.
Yeah, it makes total sense to me, everything that you're saying, for 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 a few reasons. I mean, I think that human beings, have probably been on the earth far, far longer than what we're told in your everyday, normie history. And it seems like our, I mean, you look at the most primitive of societies, even right now on Earth, and they're gonna have a big man that's maybe leading. leading them. They're going to have, some huts, you know, and they're going to have, some choice areas to extract resources from the earth, right? And it makes sense that, a group of people, a family who has found a certain area of the earth that has really, really good resources, you know, would want to maintain that area. Okay. Well, if you maintain it, part of that means, taking care of it, cultivating it, but also defending it. Because there's going to be other groups of people out there, other families that, also want, good resources. And they're like, oh, what do you have? Well, it's either we go to war or we make an alliance, right? And so if this has been, if humans have been on the earth for long, long, long time, and they've been doing this for that long, well, you can obviously see that there's going to be um, certain people, certain families that were just better at holding on to resources and defending those resources and building power, maintaining that power through hundreds and thousands of years, right? And those lines would still exist in to this very day, right? And those lines created the economic systems. They created the governments that we all know about and recognize and pretend to participate in now, you know nowadays. And those um, lines. Oh my God, I'm saying that word lines, right? But that's what it seems apparent to me. They have all. If you have all the resource, if you own the water, you know that comes out the spigots, you're going to own the secret patents to the metallic orb that has no obvious propulsion system, yet lands 5 feet in Heathrow Airport off the ground and moves around and then goes away, right? Um,
Was it
if
Gatwick or Heathrow?
I thought it was Heathrow.
Maybe it's
I thought
Heathrow.
it,
Yeah,
I
yeah, I
thought it was
can't
Heathrow.
remember.
Yeah. Um, so if you own that, how would you or I voting in some sort of electoral system make any difference? It's like you said, it's rigged from the bottom up to maintain a level of control that is beyond the normal person's purview of how reality works. And the way I see it is that there are these domes. There are these domes that we live under, right? You're here. This is a dome, right? There, and it's like money, your resources, the economy, society, culture, religion, um, and depending on your level of awareness, uh, that depends on how expansive, how far you're going to penetrate through these different domes of at least just awareness. The next level is like physically penetrating, like you can. I had this realization a while ago that these people that we're talking about, right? The people that run the deep state and everything like that, they're born, they have bodies, and they bleed and they require sustenance, right? Well, you're the exact same way, right? And there's something there that tells me that you and I have the exact same rights as they do to this material plane we all exist upon, right? So you can, through the sheer act of will and charisma, carve out. an area on this earth and call it your own. Now, can you defend it? Can you defend it against the inevitable collapse of the deep state upon you? You know, probably fucking not, right? But but who you are, it doesn't end at the level of the surface of your skin or even the surface of your bone material or organs, right? Or all the way through you. You're who you are is more than the meat that you're made out of. And there's a level in there that is um, that can be made impenetrable to these outside forces. And it's from that area where the the greatest the greatest well of resources, you know, can be drawn from to combat combat the darkness and you know what you're saying, the deep state. I think eventually that you know the vessel of our body breaks down and we're just gonna you know succumb to not necessarily the fucking deep state or anything like that, but you're gonna you know your body's gonna go away or it's gonna die, and then you'll move on. Then you'll move on to the next thing, but it's like it's like a it seems to me like a continuum. You know, things don't just fucking end; they continue on.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, like what you're talking about is like everything's like a vibration, a tone, and certain vibrations can affect you. But if you get your vibrations in a good rhythm, then nothing's gonna shift you if you're deep in your rhythm. It's like if you're dancing and you've got your swing and you got your rhythm, then it doesn't matter what the people around you are doing. You're not going to be put up by this person's rhythm and that person's rhythm and this person's rhythm and all these other rhythms around you because like you're not absorbed in those rhythms. You're in your own rhythm, and your rhythm is like rhythmic. And so I think like that's the key is good rhythms, and good rhythms start with lifestyle.
Yeah, I was.
You know, water, food. When you get up out of bed in the morning, what do you do? What's your daily obulations?
yeah,
You
there's
you
if
know
you there's a way to ritualize. There's a way to ritualize every single waking moment of your life and sleeping moment of your life. You know, to better align yourself with who you really are to navigate through this life, you know, in the best way possible. Like I think it's good to fight the deep state. I think there's something about that which which builds which builds a power inside of you that propels you forward um, in this life and whatever happens after death. And it's good. But I think that fighting the deep state um, has levels to it, and if all it is living a healthy life and keeping a clear mind, um, that you know if that's all you can do, then you should do that. Because I don't think like even you know even with what you were doing in on those buildings in London, which I think was really important, and probably had vast and positive ripples through time, backwards and forward, for not only yourself but through everyone involved, even probably Russell Brand. He could be a lot of worse things right now than a born again Christian, you know, talking about politics. Um, Gosh, I thought I think I lost the thread of where I was going, and I'm not even. Uh,
I think
Yeah.
you were saying about even if you're just working on getting a good lifestyle and a good rhythm and a good way of living,
Yeah.
that can be enough. But the world also needs activists,
Yes.
though. Like we're an example to the people we're in contact with. So if we've got a good rhythm and a lifestyle, we might have a knock-on effect on the person next to us, and they might have a knock-on effect and a knock-on effect and a knock-on effect. And when everybody gets into a good state of mind and a good lifestyle and protects themselves properly energetically, then at some point the deep state won't have power over enough of us.
Yeah.
They will just lose their power because they won't be able to fool us anymore.
Yeah. I think the real oh yeah, okay. I remember what I was saying. Yeah, like even the work that you were doing in those buildings in London weren't going to you weren't going to break apart the magic circle and topple the Bank of Switzerland. You know, it wasn't gonna fall over like the tower in the Lord of the Rings and then combust, right? I honestly I think that probably something like a biblical flood, like literally the earth breaking apart and swallowing Switzerland is what it takes to break something like that, break it apart. It doesn't get rid of it completely because there's something within the soul of man that reaches for power and will reach for it in any possible way that it can. And sometimes and I think that part of our souls, that little part is like greater in some people than it is in other people, and it's just an inescapable part of existence in this material plane that we're all a part of. But the the fight against it is also eternal. And once it's like once you see something you can't unsee it, and then you were presented with a choice. And I like to believe that we do have choices. And so you can make that you can make the decision to either fight for good or fight for evil when that choice is presented.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think like when it comes to these stories of the deep state and the politics, a lot of the way that it's portrayed is really unhealthy. There's a lot of sensationalism. The same way with spirituality. A lot of spirituality is sensationalized. A lot of the politics around deep state is sensationalized, even in the alternative community, even in our counterculture alternative frame. Here on Telegram, where there are a lot of like really lovely people doing a lot of like really lovely things, people can't help getting sort of drawn in to the excitement of it, because it seems exciting on some level, and like people like have this hunger for filling that gap, you know. And but at the same time, it's sort of people can get obsessed with research. Okay, so this is like it works the same with the occult. There are
Okay.
a lot of people doing a lot of research about the occult, right? And words and how words are used and NLP. But like, unless you're actually doing something, it doesn't matter how many days, months, 1,000 hours of research time you've got. What have you done? You could sit reading books about martial arts till they come out of your butt. But unless you're practicing and training, it's not going to do anything for you
Yeah,
functionally, realistically.
yeah, you're 100% right. The issue with books, and I've fallen down this. I've gotten to the point with books where it's like, okay, I am building a library for like my grandchildren because I'm not gonna get through these books, you know. Um, but the you were saying that you were when you were doing that activism in those buildings and you were going through that paperwork, that legal paperwork, you know, um, that is incredibly unsexy, but but that's the work you were grinding through it, to be able to maintain presence in those buildings. Like that kind of work had to be done, and Okay, well, let's take it to, the so-called occult side. Um, me, back at home or back in Colorado, getting up every morning and sitting in front of my the bat. I can't sleep. I'm raising a newborn, and like, so okay, I'm gonna sit in front of my window in the back, and I'm gonna watch the sun come up. Okay, every single day I was doing that, and we started talking, um, and I'm I'm seeing the sun move in different. It's moving. It's it was behind this branch, and then now it's moved to the other side of this branch, and the colors. I swear, the colors are different. And I look, and there's this aura around it. Okay, these are a little different than today, and then all of a sudden, it's like now, and then I'm feeling this, like the sun peaks over, and it's like oh my god, I go into a trance. Like, whoa, like I'm getting this energy just flowing into my eyeballs, and like I'm being filled by it, and it's tingly. And then one day it's like, oh, do I see there's like a little speck or something moving around. Okay, now it's gone. All right. Next day, oh, now it's like there's like all these little specks. They're all moving around, and then it correlates with something that you told me, you know. But it takes months. It's taken months to just sit there and stare at the sun every morning, And I'm not reading. It's like I'm not reading. I'm like I'm just doing this thing, and like like the practice went away. Like I'm in a different place, and hopefully I'll get back to it. Um, but like like you were saying, like I'm saying, sometimes you have to sit your butt down and face a certain direction and just stare, and other times you got to get up and you got to move around and you got to do things. You got to go to different places and you got to talk to people, and maybe you have to paint or draw or sing or drum. There's a lot of doing. Like you have this body that is supposed to move and ambulate, and create things. Like the quickest way into the deepest mysteries of the occult is doing things. It's creating.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is what um people, for example, like AI. People are using AI and they go, "No, well, we're using AI creatively to create things." And I'm like, "Yeah, like it's a tool." Yeah, it takes away that organic, visceral creativity that is innate in us.
Yeah.
And like, why should I do that work when I can
Right.
get an AI to do that work for me? But the whole process of doing that work is the work. That's the great
Yeah.
work,
The
you know?
the I don't think that people understand that the ultimate goal of the AI experiment is literally your brain in a vat with wires coming out of it. That's
Or in a
that.
machine,
Yeah, it's like hook.
brain
It's
wired into a machine.
Yeah, your brain wired into a machine hooked up to the quantum computer AI, generated. Uh, uh, hey, sweetie, the nuclear powered AI thing, and it's like that. It wants to just completely recreate um, the world that we live in and the human experience, and turn it into fucking ones and zeros. Um, can you pause it one sec?
Back.
Hey, we're back. Sorry about that. The little one. Snap time for the little one. Um, but yeah, the AI thing. It might be. I think it might be. It could. I think it could be useful for um, modulating certain. regulating certain technological systems to our benefit. It might have,
Looking
you know,
after the electrical grid.
yeah, looking, doing stuff like that. Like I think there's a thought. There's probably endless ways that we could use it for the betterment of humanity. But
Testing aeroplanes to make sure that they are ready for flight.
yeah, monitoring.
Quality control.
Yeah, monitoring weather systems for um, you know crops and agriculture and things like
Mm.
that. But recreating, but using it to recreate the precious and sacred human experience, it's probably not probably not great. I will never. I know I use a cell phone and things like that, but I will never like link myself up to any sort of like neural link. I'm never gonna have something implanted in my body, to speed up my cognition or anything like that. Like, I think there's I think there's natural ways to do all that, and it just requires you to have the force of will to, um, um, put in the work to do it for yourself. There's no shortcuts. There's no you know there's no shortcuts and hacks.
Yeah, I would say that's what it comes down to. So, like, in the same way that the whole spiritual path comes down to, like, that hard work,
Yeah,
um, and putting in the time. We've become enamored at looking at the work that other people have done
yeah,
as a society. So a lot of people will be collecting receipts, as they put it, on other people's work and quoting that as if it's knowledge. And now they're on this great journey of cerebral loading the brain with information, loading the brain with information. But, like, what is the functionality of that? What does that actually do for you? Where does it actually get you? Sure, you can understand things from a certain perspective, but at the end of the day, like, we have to eat, we have to we have to do physical things, and I think that's what it comes down to. Like, it's far more. You could spend 1,000 hours researching the
mm,
occult, or you could just spend 100 hours in meditation,
yeah,
and the 100 hours in meditation will trump the 1,000 hours of researching the occult any day of the week.
yeah,
And
yeah. I
so,
think.
yeah.
Um, I was just gonna say, like, there's probably, if you do the the 100 hours, 1,000 hours of meditation, um, there are probably things that will show up to just teach you stuff in a way that you you actually learn and that it actually sticks with you. Like, I've read so many books, and I don't know how much of it I've retained. There's probably whole books out there that I just forget about because it just goes away. But I know that, yeah,
I was just going to say, one of the cool projects that we loved
yeah,
was we were sending people to go and squat all the libraries. All the libraries in the UK were closing down.
oh,
So we started training squatting crews to go and squat the libraries.
mm,
And once they had squatted the libraries, to start taking all the books out of the libraries and going onto the streets and giving them to the public to take home. It was a huge program we had running all over the UK. We had people doing it, and had teams of people going out to teach people how to open squats and how to do it correctly, legally, and safely. And because what was happening is all of the books in the UK were getting put into depots where they're not going to see the light of day. And
oh
all the
wow,
libraries were closing down one by one, systemically. And the books were being put into depots where at some point they would become redundant. So our civil duty of civil disobedience was, actually, those books that belong to the people, not to the government, not to the library. Thank you very much. We're going to take the books. We're going to give them to the people. They belong to the people. So let's have the people keeping them, because at least that way the books are in circulation. So
Yeah.
people will be handing out books on the street, and basically, um, just let me quickly give my girlfriend a message.
Yeah, no worries. I just want to say that I'm absolutely not denigrating books. I think they're very important. I have obviously a ton of them. I novels. There's a couple novels in particular that I will probably reread once a year or so for the rest of my life because I think they're so important.
Jonathan Livingston Seagull.
What's that?
Oh my gosh.
Is that a book? Is that a novel?
Now, this is one you can read to your little girl.
Okay, yeah, you'll have to send me a link.
And it's actually a book that everybody, I believe, should read. I've read that book so many times. And here's the thing, right? I wonder if I'll still cry. I'm actually going to read the book again and see if I still cry. Like, just about every time that I read that book, I've cried.
Hmm.
I can think of like reading it 9 or 10 times. So
Okay.
it's Richard Bach, Jonathan Livingston Seagull. It's a very quick read, by the way. How many pages is it? I don't think it's more than like 40 pages. And it's just the story about a seagull that doesn't want to conform.
Hmm.
And it's a story of transformation,
Mhm.
how the seagull becomes an eagle. It's very shamanic. It's very
Nice.
powerful.
Yeah, I'll get it. I'll read it.
And it's written in such a way that it's a children's story
Okay.
for adults.
Oh, nice. Well, man, I think we've been talking for almost 2 hours now.
Close to, yeah.
Yeah, I think that was a great conversation.
Thank you, dear brother. I loved it. I think it was wonderful. And I hope you have a good day. I hope your little sun sparkle is going to be sparkling like the sun.
Absolutely. You have a good one too, man.
And thank you, everybody, for watching. I hope you all have an absolutely great day, great week. This is Jeremy, the tall tree, and Franklin, the bush whisperer. And we shall be back. So much love, peace, honor,
Yep.
respect.